Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Beautiful week. This is the week of Yutet Kislev. Yutet Kislev. Here is charity. Let's start the day off by giving to others. Giving charity. Charity brings the geula. Charity prevents all bad things from happening. Charity. Now we're learning about Jacob, Yaakov. All right, so we're introduced in this week's Torah portion also to Joseph. And of course, that starts the whole big story of the Torah, the Jews going down to Egypt, and the forming of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, for some strange reason that only God knows why, were born in Egypt. They were suffered in Egypt for 210 years. They didn't even do anything bad. They were born there. But that's how Judaism starts off. So the Rebbe once I saw brought this in reference to somebody that was talking about the Holocaust. Maybe he was a person who went through the Holocaust. And he said the reason for the Holocaust was like this, and the reason that the person that wrote to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, you don't have to search for reasons for the Holocaust. He said it was a decree from God. And what's the proof? The fact that the Jews were in Egypt for 210 years. It was a decree from God. It wasn't, they didn't do anything bad. God just decided that's what it's going to be. He told Abraham that's how it was going to be. So this is why the Jewish people had to start off that way. We'll talk about that a little bit. But that's the fact of business. That's it. And in fact, the soul suffers even more, that it comes from the heavenly realms into this physical body. The soul suffers even more in that descent. So the Jews coming into Egypt is just something like, 1/10 is bad or whatever, 100th is bad, as a soul coming into the body. So it's, for some reason, this is good and this is what God wants. But that's the fact. Okay, so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were not exactly like the Jewish people. What happened with the Jewish people? The first of the 10 commandments, I am God that took you out of Egypt. This is the beginning of the whole story of going into Egypt, right? Joseph is born, and the brothers throw him into a pit, and the brothers sell him into Egypt, and he goes down there in Egypt, and he becomes eventually a big macher over there in Egypt, and he becomes like the viceroy, the assistant king of like the vice president. He becomes the vice president, vice king of this, and he ends up saving the whole world. Joseph saves the whole world, right? And then the Jewish people, they all go into Egypt, and they get out, they get the Torah. So after the Jewish people get the Torah and they see God, no one in the world had any doubt that God exists. No one in the world had any doubt that God chooses the Jewish people. No one in the world had any doubt that God helps the Jewish people. He cares about the Jews. He's involved physically, actually, materially, in the physical world with the Jewish people. He gave them bread from heaven. He gave them water from rock. He spoke to them, gave them the Torah. The Jewish people know, they were sure of God. They know they were chosen people. They know that 40 days after they got the Torah, they worshiped the golden calf. They did exactly what God said not to do. So what can we learn from this? That there's a big lesson to be learned from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the whole world was against them. They had no signs of godliness. God promised them all sorts of things, and he didn't come through. And nevertheless, they steadfast, believed in God. And, what did they get from all their efforts? They went down to Egypt and suffered there for 210 years. That was the results of all of their work, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And nevertheless, they had no questions about God. They had no questions. They didn't see God. They didn't feel God. God didn't come through with them. God didn't... There were a few miracles that happened to them, but nothing like, the Jewish people being saved from Egypt. Nothing like that. And so we have a big lesson to learn from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that is how you're supposed to serve God, your attitude. What your attitude is supposed to be. It's supposed to be true certainty that God is good no matter what you see, no matter what happens, no matter what is, and that God is good. And a lot of people that went through the Holocaust learn this. A very difficult way to learn it. But on the other hand, that God does everything for you and you don't have any big challenges, like God gives the 10 plagues and he splits the sea, then you get an easy life. And an easy life is not good for Judaism, not good for Jews. Huh? Ideally, it's supposed to be both, that we push ourselves, we force ourselves. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn from here. Obviously, we're after giving the Torah. So we're going to learn from here how to push ourselves, how to have the attitude of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Even though we did receive the Torah, and now we have a big advantage on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because everybody, even the most simple Jew, knows what to do. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were great people. Okay, here we go. So it says, Vayeshev, this is with this week's Torah portion. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Aviv be'eretz Canaan. That finally, after Yaakov, that's Jacob, right? He met up with Esav. And he finished with Lavan. And Lavan wanted to kill him. Lavan wanted to, and he cheated him 1,000 times. And Esav wanted to kill him, his brother. And he went through all this, right? He worked for 20 years. He was away from his father for like 35 years, whatever. And finally, he comes back to the land of his fathers. And now he can sit and rest, and he's in peace, right? Sit in peace. And then it says that then comes the whole story with Joseph, and his brothers hate him, and etc. So he's not given this opportunity. When he went to Egypt afterwards, it says there was peace for a while, that he was able to live a peaceful life in Egypt. But it was in Egypt. They wanted to get out. It was not the place for a Jew in Egypt. Okay. So this week's Torah portion starts off. Vayeshev Yaakov, the Yaakov dwelled, he went back after the whole, after this whole trauma with his brother Esav, and after working for Lavan, all of his family. Vayeshev Yaakov dwelled, he settled in the land of the dwelling of his fathers, where Abraham and Isaac dwelled. The Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. Okay, the land is not called the land of Israel yet, even though, of course, it is the land of Israel. Israel is Jacob, and it's the land that's promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, but up to here, it's called the land of Canaan. Land of Canaan. Now, why couldn't the Torah just call it the land of Israel? What's the problem? What's the problem? The Torah can just do anything it wants to. Why does God call this place the land of Canaan until later on? Then it calls it the Eretz Yisrael land. Okay, lahavin, to understand Inyan Zeh this, Gam Kaval Lashon. Why does the Torah repeat itself seemingly? Why does the Torah repeat itself and say the land of the dwelling of his fathers, the land of Canaan? Where his fathers dwelled was Canaan. That's where they dwelled. That's where they're buried. Right? Hebron. The land of the dwelling of the fathers, they called it Eretz Canaan. So why does it repeat it? The land where his fathers dwelt, the land of Canaan. Now, again, we have to remember that the Torah was written by God. The Torah was not written by inspired people. The Torah was not written by a spirit. The Torah did not fall from heaven. The Torah was written by God, and everyone, all the Jewish people, at least on Mount Sinai, when they received it, they knew 100% that the Torah was written by God. They heard God say the first 10 commandments. They heard God said them, and their parents told them about Abraham and Isaac. And that was the Jewish people. The Jewish people were in Egypt, and they were separate from everybody else. Everybody knew a Jew is different from everybody else. Everybody knew it. And when they got out of Egypt, for sure they knew it. But in any case, they all knew. Okay, so why does it say the land of the dwelling of his fathers, the land of Egypt? Why does God say that? God writes this. Behold, because it is written, as Halach Lefanei Hashem, I will walk before God, in the lands of life. I will walk before God in the lands of life. What is this lands of life? Just one second, I want to look this up here. What are the lands of life? There are two lands, spiritual lands, the lands of life. These are, a land is a vessel, right? For the upper life of God to be revealed. Just like life is also plural. Also the lands of life. There's chai, to be alive, and there's chayim, is lives. We don't say that. Okay, now everybody probably knows that your life is not your body, right? Your life is not your body. Your body is a vessel for life. If it's a dead person, a dead dog, a dead whatever it is, dead fish. So you know that the body is not alive. The body has a thing in it which is life. So the body is a vessel for life. Life is a big miracle, okay, but life has to have a vessel for it. There's two different types of life. That's what the Rebbe wants to say. Ubirin, and let's explain this. Torah Ohr, you have to understand. Lama Nikra Eretz Yisrael. Why is the land of Israel called, in the whole entire Torah, is called the land of Canaan? Hari Acham. There was Noah had three sons, right? Where does the name Canaan come from? It was Noah was in the ark. Noah came out of the ark. He had three sons. One of them was Ham, and he was the father of Canaan. Ham was the bad son of Noah. He was the loser of Noah. Noah cursed him. But it says that Ham, he castrated his father. He found his father drunk in the tent, and he castrated him. So this was a chance, because it says that why in the world would he do a crazy thing like that? Because he saw that there was nobody left in the world, and that the world would be divided when his father died into three parts. And he thought if his father had more children, then it would have to be divided. Really, seriously, it would divide it into four parts. Maybe if he had 10 children, it would divide. And he didn't want only 1/10 of the world or 1/13 of the world, right? He wanted 1/3 of the world. So he castrated his father, so his father went. Anyway, so he was a loser, Ham. And all he got from him was a big curse. So Ham was the father of Canaan. So Canaan is not such a nice word, Canaan, right? It's named after the son of a total fool, Ham. So Canaan, so the land of Israel is called the land of Canaan. Why in the world would you call it the land of Canaan? That's like, right? Call it the land of Isaac, the land of Abraham, the land of Adam. Adam lived in. What type of a genealogy is this that you're connecting Shevach, or a praise of the land of Israel? It's called the land of Israel, Canaan. Also, it says Canaan, a like a businessman, biyado mosne mirma, a businessman. There's a dishonest businessman that they have false scales in their hand. The Canaan implies a trickster. So that's not nice. Why is the land of Israel called Canaan? So far, we haven't found any sort of a good implication for this word of Canaan. Why? Wait a second. I just wanted to see something over here. I forgot what page we're on. Give me a page. 1 second. Okay. There we go. Here we go. There we go. Very good. Okay, good. Yes. Very. Yeah. Okay. A Kanani is like you say a tricking, a dishonest businessman is called a Kanani. And he has in his hands false scales. It's a sentence in Hosea. Okay, so what does it mean? Let's go. So why is the land of Israel called the land of Canaan? So what is the good? Let's find some sort of a good meaning for the word of Canaan. Up to now, we've only found bad things. Here we go. It says the meaning is, Hine, no, that's known, Shakala Torah, the whole entire Torah, is Nidreshes, Bezelu Moseh. The Torah, everything in the Torah that's good can be also implicated bad. Everything that's bad can also be learned for good. Usually that's the main thing, is that everything in the Torah is good. So even the apparently bad things in the Torah can also have a good side to them. Kamosh yesh lavan, for instance, there's Lavan and Esav, the klippa in the side of bad, kain saram tabachim. Also, there's also the when Joseph, we'll see Joseph was thrown into the pit. So there was the master, the what is it called, the chief of the chief the slaughterer, and the chief the wine, how do you say, the wine master, right? That all these found in holiness. We'll get to that next week. Also, there's also everything in the Torah that's there. All the bad things are also in holiness. Because God made the world in such a way that everything there is in the world that's bad, there's also something good corresponding to it, or it can be interpreted in a good way. In fact, that's the job of the Jews, is to find something good in what is bad and to reject the bad. A lot of times you find something good in what's bad, and that transforms the bad. And of course, it's a very delicate thing. You can't make blessings on sins or something like that. Doing sins, that was Shabbatai Tzvi. That was his big sin. That was his big insanity. He thought he was the Messiah, and that you could take all the bad things in the world and you could do them if you made blessings on them. So that's pretty far out, but he was also pretty popular, as you could probably imagine. Okay, but nevertheless, everything that's bad in the Torah, everything that's bad also has something good in it. Okay, so the three sons of Noah were Shem and Ham and Yafet, right? The three sons of Noah above, and they are also in holiness. These are the three colors of the rainbow, which the three colors of the rainbow are white, red, and green. And all this corresponds to: white is usually kindness, love. Red is usually severity, red like blood, severity. And Yorok is usually the balance between them. Okay, but that's in its source. The three sons of Noah, I mean, the whole world came from them. So they weren't exactly the best examples of humanity, especially Ham wasn't. But when the worlds, God, that's in their source, but God made a world, and from the source came down to the world. But Bechinas Nefila and Madriga, that comes from level after the other. So Ham, which is a good thing in its source, but when it comes to be physical, he became the father of Canaan. He became the father of this dishonest businessman, salesman. But our job is to elevate this up back to its source. Well, let's see how we do this. Like I say, it's a very delicate thing, and you have to really watch out. In the beginning of Chassidut, the Judaism, especially religious Judaism, and pretty much all the Jews in those days were religious. There was no, this is like 300 years ago. There was really no such thing as a Jew that denied God's existence. 300 years ago, there was no such thing. In the time of Shabbatai Tzvi, everybody believed in God. They all believed in God. They all believed in God, and pretty much they all did Torah and the commandments. That only happened afterwards. Okay. Anyway, a tragic thing. So, okay, when Chassidut came along, and Chassidut started saying things that were very similar to what Shabbatai Tzvi said. So what did Shabbatai Tzvi say? He said that you can take all the bad things in the world and that you can elevate them by just making blessings. So he did all these bizarre orgies and all sorts of crazy things. And he did, he ate forbidden food, but they said blessings on it. You have to think about God, the source. And so as a result, it was chaos. He wanted chaos. And he did it in the name of God, and he did it in the name of the Torah and the Zohar. And there were some people that after the Shabbat Tzvi, they forbade the learning of the Zohar. They forbid, you can't do it because it was so impossible to make mistakes and not take things in their simple meaning. So came along Chassidut and did basically the same thing. But Chassidut claimed, no, but everything we do is open to argument. We can prove everything we say according to the Torah. This is not a matter of just, blind faith. Everything that we say is according 100% to the Torah. Anyone who has any doubts about it, please come and tell us if we're making a mistake. Right? But that was not Shabbat Tzvi. Shabbat Tzvi wanted blind faith. Don't ask any questions. And he took everybody into. I understand there's still people that believe in it. He changed his religion. He became a Muslim. But Chassidut did. Why did Chassidut do this? Because that's the job of the Jews. The job of the Jews really is to make this world into a holy place. And Shabbat Tzvi took, just like Christianity took the idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is a very good idea. There has to be Moshiach. We're waiting for Moshiach. But they twisted it around and redefined it so that it became destructive. But that we have to believe in Moshiach. We have to believe, right? But when you get down to the details, how do you say, the divine is in the details. When you get down to the details, you see it doesn't work. The whole idea of Chassidut is to, in the details of godliness, of the Torah and the commandments. That's the whole point. Mashiach is supposed to bring everybody to do more Torah and commandments. And Shabbat Tzvi and this, Christianity, they stop people from doing Torah. They encourage people to do sins. Okay, so here we have Cham. Cham in his source is very good. Cham, it comes down into the world to be is the father of Canaan, which is something very bad. Okay, so let's understand, what is this Canaan, which is a dishonest businessman, a Canaani? What does it mean in holiness? Hine, Canaan means a socher, is a businessman. Like it says, Canaani nechbedei oretz. It says the word Canaani doesn't necessarily mean a crooked businessman. It means also an honest business, a businessman. What does a businessman do? A businessman takes a product, he buys it cheap, brings it to people who really need it, and they pay him for his services, for the fact that he presents them with something they need. That's what a Canaani does. It says, Canaani biyadom is mosvei mirma. So it says, a Canaan, a crooked businessman, can have in his hands false scales. Right? Does that mean all businessmen are bad? No, it doesn't. But on the other hand, you need businessmen. Unless you want to live in the jungle, just eat ants or something like that. You have to have a businessman. You want things to move around. You want a productive society. Instead of everybody just looking around and finding food from scavenging or whatever it is. So you have one person gets a lot of bananas, and he has 1,000 bananas, and he trades 10 of his bananas for somebody else's bicycle, and then somebody else, then he can take the bicycle, he can bring the bananas to another place, and then he trades it for something else. Then finally they develop money, and money, you don't have to carry bananas around, you can carry money around, and then you have an active society. You have an active economy, so that people can have everything in their house that they need. In their household, they don't have to go and scavenge around for food. Right? So it's possible to go to the store, you have money that you got because you provided one need of somebody, they gave you money. Now you can buy other needs for yourself, and etc. Okay. So it says, so what does a Canaani do? A Canaani, he stirs things around. He stirs things around. He makes a profit that ideally everybody makes a profit. Okay. It says, Halder, Mashal, for instance, is a socher, like a businessman. Shiafazer, that he spends money, silver and gold, and he takes the money out of his bank account in order that he should make a profit, listaker, and to make more money. So his whole idea is he wants to invest and make more. Is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's a wonderful thing, right? A wonderful thing. Capitalism is a wonderful thing. Like everything else, it can be misused. But the idea is behind it is that everyone should have everything they need. That's the idea. And everyone should be able to utilize their talents in order to provide the needs of others. You walk in the street, see what people need, think, I'm going to try to provide those needs, right? And you go far away and you bring something that these people need. That, wow, I really need that. How did you get that? How did you get that? Well, if you're willing to pay, I'll give it to you also. Sure, of course. What's the question? So now everybody has a bicycle and everybody has a car and everybody has a house, which people can't build their own bicycles and their cars. That's the idea of business. That's the same thing as God put the soul into the world to be a businessman, to provide people, like we gave charity in the morning before we started, to provide people with what they need. The source of the souls of the Jewish people, that's called Knesset Yisrael. It's called the gathering of the Jewish people. That's the source of the souls, called Knesset Yisrael. Nimshal B'Golus, it's compared, the Jewish people in exile are compared to a businessman, like it says, like Jacob and Esav, right? Esav came in to get the blessings from his father, and his father said, "Wow, who are you?" He said, "I'm Esav." He said, "Oh, your brother just came and he tricked me into giving the blessings." He tricked me into believing. Yitzchak wanted to give a blessing to his son Esau, and his other son Jacob, he knew that if Esau received the blessing, it would be bad. Esau had no intention of benefiting anyone except for himself. Therefore, Jacob needed the blessings in order to be a businessman. In order to be a businessman, that he would able to get the blessings and he would scatter them around in order to make a profit from it. The world would make a profit. That's what it says, Adam, like a person rules over another person for that's bad for him. Where is this? This is in Mishnah, right? 1 second, 1 minute. Let me see where this is. Yeah. Excuse me. There it is. Yeah. It's a sentence in Mishnah. Here it is. I'm sorry. It's in Ecclesiastes. One man rules over another, and it's bad. The means of God's presence being in exile among them, among the Jewish people, among the world, lahashpia, in order to give. By means of this, mibarin kol netzutzos, God's presence comes into the world as a businessman. What does it mean? It takes these sparks of holiness in the world. But God's presence, where's the God's presence? In the Jewish people. God put the Jewish people in the world so they would do Torah and commandments that would elevate the world. The Hosef Aleim Gerim, it says, Liot Bala HaMavet Lenetzach, that in the end, that all bad would be swallowed up. So Jewish people were put into the world in order to improve the world. Right? What happens? Let's say you go to Africa. Go to Africa. Everybody in Africa, they're just savages wandering around in the jungle, killing each other. some if they're really wise or something, develop like poison darts or something like that. Right? That's a big invention, right? They can protect themselves. So someone comes over there and says, "Listen, maybe you people would like shoes." What does shoes mean? Look, I got shoes. Well, those are nice. How do I get that? I'll bring them shoes, but you have to provide me with something. What do I provide? You have to provide me with diamonds. I'll give you shoes and you give me diamonds. You give some diamonds. Now with the diamonds, you can buy now hats, clothes, houses. you want clothes, houses? Yeah, give me more diamonds. You got diamonds? No problem. Right? So you give them diamonds. All of a sudden, the whole place becomes settled. Maybe you want electricity. You want water. You want flowing water. Maybe you want schools. What about education? All of a sudden, the place becomes fertile. Why did it become fertile? Because somebody came and decided that he wanted to be a businessman. Someone came and decided that he wanted to improve everything. That's a businessman. The same thing as the soul. The soul comes into the world in order to improve the world. Now you can ask a question, why did God make the world bad in the first place? So the answer is that that's what God decided. If it wouldn't be for that, then we wouldn't have responsibility, we wouldn't have a world. Kamosha, just like it is in the whole world, so it is in every single Jewish soul in serving God. The soul, before it came down into the world to be plotted in the body and into the natural soul, natural soul, Yakashura Miyucheret, the Makor, it was in its source, the Maitzlim in its emanator, Barish Fe'esh, with flaming fire of love of God. Just like a flame that goes up. Right? There's a thing in the world which is called peer pressure. You ever heard this? Peer pressure. It's being pointed out more and more in Israel, especially now. Bullying children, little children, innocent children, they get bullied by their friends. And a lot of them would commit suicide. Right? What happened? The soul was, before it came into the body, it was pure, revealed true truth. The soul. The soul comes into the body, all of a sudden it's not interested in truth anymore. It's interested in about what everybody says about you. Little kids that are cruel kids, all of a sudden they become the boss. Before the soul came into the body, you were linked to the essence of God, pure good. Just wanted you to exist, just wanted you to be happy. You had love of God, you appreciated God. God is so good, he's only thinking about me, he's creating me. He's creating me, he's enlivening me. That's what the soul felt. The soul, that God puts the soul into the body, the soul doesn't think about, oh, I'm so lucky to be alive. What does he think about? Shmerel said that I'm ugly. I stubbed my toe this morning. Everybody laughed, right? And that all of a sudden, that's what consumes the soul. So the person goes crazy. And why in the world would God do such a thing like this? Now that you put into the soul, the baby comes in, is born. The first thing is he's helpless. He's crying. He's screaming. He's hungry. He's cold. He's totally, how do you say, defenseless against the whole world. Why would God do such a weird thing like that? We don't know why, but that's what he did. That's what life is. Says the Rebbe, we have to suppose that God is good, and it's really, really good. But in fact, it's really a terrible situation God puts us into. So this is the reason God put us into the world, is in order to be businessmen, to come into the world, which is a terrible world, and to improve it. That's the idea of kesef v'zav. That's what the idea of a businessman has: silver and gold. Silver is the language of desire. Kesef nichsafta. Love. Zav, it says zav comes from the north. That's the idea of the left side. That's fear. Zav, gold, is like fire. It's red. And afterwards, when the soul comes down into the physical world to be put into the physical body, then this love and this fear, which it had before, become concealed. And they became hidden. And that's the big novelty. That's something that God himself can't do. God is never in exile, so to speak. God is never, the world doesn't conceal God, doesn't. We'll see that's not 100% stupid. True. It says that's hidden in the heart, physical heart. But the soul now in the body, it can't see how good God is, can't see how powerful God is so much. But that's the idea. That's why God put us in the world, in order to bring this awareness of God into the physical world, to see how important the world is. Nimsa comes out, that it's the amount of love and fear that he had is lost, like a businessman. He takes the money that he has and he empties out his bank account in order to make an investment. If so, Lama said, why is it that the soul came down into this physical world? It's a tremendous descent. The reason is, Tovli Torah Picha Be'alfei Tzav Chesed, because it says your Torah, it's a sentence in King David. God is saying, in the name of King David, he's saying that your Torah is better than love and fear and love. Alfei, thousands of, that a Jew in this physical world learns Torah, that gives God pleasure. That gives God pleasure. We have free will. You can do whatever you want to. And you go in this world and you serve God in this world against all, how do you say, odds. Not only that, if you just ask all the scientists in the world, all the scientists, all the psychiatrists, all of this, and say, is there such a thing as God? Is it worthwhile to serve God? Should I love God? Should I fear God? They'll all say, what are you talking about? Where is God? What are you talking about? What type of question is that? Of course there's God. You're asking the scientists if there's God. Of course there's no God. How are you supposed to detect him? Detect God. Ask the psychiatrist, right? God exists. I don't know what you're talking about. Where is God? Maybe belief exists. Maybe faith exists. And that's not, if it helps you, do it. But how are you going to feel that there's God? How are you going to feel that So he says there's a point inside of the essence of your soul that is certain that God exists, and it's not empirical. The Jewish people, when they had empirical proof of God, right? God took them from Egypt. He took them from the Torah. 40 days later, they worshiped the golden calf. So in all the empirical proofs and of the world, in the world, that God exists and God is good, it's not going to help. Not going to help you. It won't come to bring love God. It'll help you to love yourself. Nevertheless, however it is, if a person in this world brings himself to like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were, that they loved God against all odds, and even more, now we have the Torah, we learn Torah, so it says that your learning Torah is better than thousands of gold and silver, says God. Alfe, the word alfe also means to learn, an ulpan. Limud, like it says, there's better the learning of the Torah in this physical world more than the silver and gold that was to the soul before it was up in the upper worlds. And the upper worlds is also Torah. So now we're starting to understand why the land of Israel is called Canaan. Canaan means a businessman. And that's why we're put into this physical world, physical land of Israel, which is perhaps in the worst place in the world, the land of Israel. It's surrounded by enemies. It's in the center of everybody's attention. If God just would have given the Jews Alaska or someplace like that and make a miracle that it got warm suddenly. God can't do it. No, he has to make it over here. There has to be constant miracles in the land of Israel. Why does he have to do it? He says, because God wants us to be in the physical world, and he wants us to use the love and fear that we have of him in order to serve God, to do the Torah and the commandments. That's like what the rabbis say. Yafa shachat b'tshuva. It says it's better one moment of tshuva in this world than all of the life of the worlds to come, because by means of tshuva, returning to God from the essence of our heart, to devekas and nefesh, then the soul will cling to God even more than it was when it was in heaven before it came into the world. Before the soul came into the world, it was natural. You didn't appreciate life. In this world, when we're put in this world, now you really appreciate God. And not only do you really appreciate God, how God is up in heaven, but you start to appreciate God, all the details of the world. Nimsa, so it comes out, even though sheyesh lo, that there is to the soul, your own, a tremendous loss in love and natural fear in the external part of the heart. Nevertheless, yel yitron, so it comes out that there is a tremendous benefit, a profit, P-R-O-F-I-T, a profit, a monetary profit, in this case, a profit, a soul profit, in it coming, then the root of the leaf and the arousal of the heart, in the inner point of the heart, like a better type of light that comes from the darkness. So if so, God puts the soul into the world in order to make a profit, a businessman. That's why it's called Canaan. The land of Israel is the example of how good this world is, with all of its troubles and all of its difficulties, because by means of that, we can do business. We can give God a profit. Take the love and fear, which is gold and silver, and spend it in the physical world, in the problems, the troubles of the physical world, and use that in order to learn Torah and commandments and to take the world and transform it, making a profit for God, as we'll talk about more God willing, tomorrow.